It was a typical summer evening in the small town of Willow Creek. As the sun set, the neighborhood was bathed in a warm glow as kids played and laughed in the streets. But the evening would end tragically for the Johnson family. John Thompson, a man with a troubled past and a penchant for violence, had been released from prison a few months ago. He had spent years in prison for a string of burglaries and assaults. The parole board decided to give him a chance at rehabilitation because he had been a model prisoner. John, however, had other ideas. He had always been obsessed with the Johnson family. They were well respected in the community and had always been kind to him. He had always felt a sense of envy towards them, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were living the life that should have been his. So, on that fateful summer evening, John decided to take what he felt was rightfully his. He broke into the Johnsons' home, armed with a knife and a plan. He killed the parents, the grandparents, and the siblings of the young boy named Jack. Jack managed to hide under his bed and avoid being killed. When the police arrived, they discovered the Johnson family members' bodies scattered throughout the living room. When Jack was found, he was traumatized and abandoned. His aunt was given care of him. Years passed, and Jack grew into a strong and determined young man. He never forgot about what happened to his family or the man who took everything from him. He spent his days training, preparing for the day when he would finally have his revenge. He gained combat, shooting, and tracking skills. He devoted hours to researching the criminal mind and the legal system. When he eventually caught up with John Thompson, he wanted to be sure he could prosecute him. As soon as he was old enough, Jack set out to find John Thompson. He tracked him across the country, always staying one step ahead. He would stop at nothing to make sure that the man who killed his family would pay for his crimes. Jack made use of all resources, including the internet and private investigators. He spoke with other John's attack survivors as well as those who knew him. In order to anticipate the hunted man's next move and be prepared for him, he wanted to comprehend him. Finally, Jack caught up with John Thompson in a small cabin deep in the woods. He had received a tip from a local hunter who had seen a strange man living in the woods. Jack knew it was him. He burst into the cabin, ready for the confrontation he had been waiting for. But what he found was not what he was expecting. John Thompson was an old, frail, and weak man. The day of reckoning had been looming for years for him, and he lived in fear of it. He begged Jack for forgiveness, but Jack was not interested in forgiveness. Justice was what he wanted. John tried to explain that he was a changed man, that he was sorry for what he did, and that he had been punished enough. He had lost everything: his freedom, his family, his friends. He had spent years in prison and had lived a life of solitude and fear. But Jack didn't want to hear it. All he saw was the man who had taken everything from him. They struggled, and Jack was able to overpower the old man. He had him at gunpoint, ready to pull the trigger. But as he looked into John's eyes, he saw the fear, the regret, and the sorrow. At that moment, he realized killing John wouldn't bring back his family or ease his pain. He also realized that if he killed John, he would become just like him, a killer. He lowered his gun and calmly said, "I won't kill you. but you're gonna pay for your actions. I'll put you in prison for the rest of your life, and you'll think about the lives you took and the pain you caused." Jack called the police, and John was arrested and charged with murder. He was found guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. Jack testified in the trial, and his powerful words were instrumental in securing a guilty verdict. After the trial, Jack returned to Willow Creek. He decided to turn his childhood home into a healing center for other victims of violence and their families. He turned it into a counseling center where people could find support and guidance. He dedicated his life to helping others find closure and peace, just as he had. In time, Jack found love and started a family of his own. He finally found happiness and was able to move on from the tragedy that had taken his family. He realized that although he couldn't change the past, he could shape his own future and the future of others. He had found closure and had turned his pain into something positive. Years passed, and Jack became a respected member of the community. He was known for his kindness, his generosity, and his compassion. He had found a new purpose in life, and he had finally found peace. The tragedy that had taken his family had also given him the strength and determination to make a difference in the world. For many people, Jack had evolved into a ray of hope and inspiration. His life's darkest chapter had been transformed into something lovely by him. Jack chose to define himself by the way he lived his life rather than allowing the deeds of one man to define who he was.